So that instructional training piece is a vital component to implementing RTI and just in improving the performance of students who are struggling in schools.
I would say that is probably the most important piece. And sometimes it's often the most difficult. Um, Generally, schools can find an assessment, they can train the teachers on the assessment, they can implement the assessment, they can look at the data. But really, where an RTI model will be effective is when you have teachers that are able to address the needs of the students. And that's not always as simple as it sounds. We have teachers that they do a good job. They teach, they focus the students, they work on learning the content, learning the standards. They set up a classroom structure that is conducive to learning. But even with all of that, there will be students that struggle. And sometimes these students are struggling uh, with very difficult instructional needs for the teacher to meet. And that's where that professional development teaching for the teachers can really benefit an RTI model. And sometimes that's overlooked. I often work with schools where they spend the majority of their time focusing on the assessment and looking at that data and not enough on how to teach more effectively at the teacher level. Because when you peel apart the pieces, RTI boils down to really the teacher delivering instruction to the student. And that's where an RTI model will either be successful or not as successful.
Right, right. Very difficult subject. Tell me, or tell our viewers more about what are you actually doing now in the schools? You've developed a new curriculum, I believe.
Yes, I have, with a colleague, I must point out, Dr. Brad Witzel from Winthrop University.
Uh-huh.
We have developed three interventions for three areas in mathematics. And one of them is fractions, which should not be surprising to any middle school teacher that fractions is challenging for students. We have an intervention on simple equations, more of an algebra slant. And we also have an intervention on integers. Now, the way these three interventions are all developed is they're developed on the concrete to representational to abstract approach of instruction, which is referred to as CRA. And within this approach, the interventions take the students from a concrete representation of the math concepts to a visual pictorial representation and then ultimately to the abstract, because the abstract is the main goal of learning, is that students can focus at the abstract lesson. So we have those three interventions that are targeting the area of mathematics. And then we have a fourth book, which is on response to intervention in the area of mathematics. Now, I know I'm focusing on math here, but the essential components of RTI in mathematics is exactly the same as the essential components of RTI in reading.
So the benefit is that when you do an RTI professional development training, it affects all teachers, not just mathematics. It talks
That's
about
right.
instruction, and curriculum is a secondary issue. It teaches a teacher how to teach things in a different way.
That's exactly right. The features are the same. What will differ is you'll be using a math assessment versus a reading assessment. At least from my perspective, the instructional design features of an effective reading lesson are very similar to the instructional design features of a math lesson. They're just targeting the specific content. But other than that, the professional development for RTI can be the same initially for all teachers, and then it can branch off into the specific content areas that they're going to focus in as they address their RTI model.
Well, it's a fantastic model. It's a great way for districts and schools to take a preventative approach. It really separates those students who are identified in the special education from those students who are just having difficulty understanding the instruction or the curriculum. So there's a lot of benefits to RTI, to a school and to a district.
When implemented correctly, absolutely, because all schools are charged with teaching all children. And what RTI is it really focuses those efforts in a systematic process. I'd also like to point out that RTI will also continue after a child has been labeled as learning disability. It's just in a fashion that RTI doesn't stop once the child has been deemed eligible for special education. It will continue in the special education arena where the teachers are trying to improve their learning even for those students as well.
Great point, Paul. Tell me, where are you going in the future? Do you expect to do further research in RTI? What's the future hold for you, Dr. Riccomini?
Well, one of the biggest questions in RTI is, what should we do as an intervention? And unfortunately, specific to the area of mathematics, the research is lagging behind that of reading. When kids struggle in reading, there is a rather robust research base on interventions that are effective. In the area of mathematics, that research base that we're starting from is much smaller than that of reading. So part of what I am interested in doing is beginning to examine the available interventions that are out there. So as RTI has gained momentum, publishers have not turned a blind eye to this, so they have began to produce interventions for mathematics that are targeting kids that are struggling, primarily in the K-8 grade level band. And the number of interventions that we have that are scientifically valid and or even evidence-based is smaller than what the field really needs. So I am pursuing some research that's targeting elementary, mostly second and third grade, and then also targeting the middle school area, because in the United States, that's where our students really tend to struggle in mathematics, or the separation begins to take place around 4th and 5th grade. So I'm starting research studies that are targeting those areas.
Well, certainly that middle school area is the key, according to most of the research we see. So it's wonderful that you're focusing on that area. Paul, if our viewers wanted to find out more about your work or about your series, where would they find this information?
They can obviously Google answers all, so they could start by simply Googling my name. Or I'm a professor at Penn State University. If they were to go to www.psu.edu and go to the College of Education, they could find my website there, which will fill them in on my background, what my current projects are, what current publications that I have out there as well. I also have a Twitter account that will often post things related to the area of mathematics as well.
Any conferences you plan to be attending?
Yeah, I always attend the Council for Exceptional Children conference. This year, it's always in April. This year, it's in Denver, Colorado. And I am presenting at various conferences throughout the United States at both the state level and the district level.
Well, it was wonderful to have you on the show, and look forward to staying in touch with you and see how your research is coming along. Thank you, Dr. Paul Riccomini, for your time.
Thank you very much, Ted.